a Christian group. So Bible class is mandatory for everyone. Everyone has to go to Bible class. And so being the gung-ho little member I was, I would secretly fight my Bible teacher, Mrs. Roberts. So starting from when I was 10, I would ask her questions after class, like, why did the Israelites have to go to Egypt after Abraham divided or failed to divide the birds? Or why did John the Baptist deny Jesus after he saw the Holy Spirit descend like a dove after he baptized him in the Jordan River? How could he possibly doubt Jesus after that? I'm like 10 years old here. and my teacher, I could never quite stump her. She always had an answer, being like 40 years older than me, and having studied the Bible for all that time. But she loved it when I would ask these questions, because she thought, oh, man, he loves the Bible, he reads so much. I only read the annotations in the DP. But she had no idea I was secretly trying to witness to her. And there was this one time after we talked where I stood in the hallway just thinking, oh, man, if only she knew the truth. The thing is, when I was young, I believed in God because my parents did, and I love my parents. And I mean, as a child, there's only so much I could understand about God and divine principle and true parents and lineage. And lineage is so important in unificationism, right? Yeah. And to highlight that, I want to read an excerpt from Blessing and Ideal Family. So, without going through the indemnity course, you cannot go in front of God. But the blessed children can go forward without any condition. Their quality is totally different from yours. You were born centered on the root of the fallen world, and were engrafted to be the harvested fruit. Your root still remains in the fallen world, but your children are the new fruit centered upon God. To bear children rooted in God and true parents is more exalted than Mary's bearing the Messiah. The blessed children born of you are better than Jesus, for whom God prepared 4,000 years. Did Jesus' mother and father receive the blessing and bear him? Your children are born of the blessing from the true parents. I'm special. But in all seriousness, this didn't mean anything to me growing up. Lineage meant nothing to me as a child, and I didn't feel special. I didn't feel better than my parents. And to be honest, I would be surprised to hear if any child ever feels better or more special than their parents, right? I mean, your parents are everything to you when you're growing up. My parents made sure that I read Hinduke every day. And when I was older, my dad had poor eyesight, or his eyes would get really tired. And then my mom is Korean, and she does not read English very quickly. So by the time I was 13, it fell to me to basically lead family Hinduke every night. And I studied the divine principle every day. And my parents were so proud of me because I did those things. But this was homework for me. And my parents never realized the crucial mistake that they were making when they were raising me. They assumed that because I was born into the church, that automatically made me a member. My parents have great stories about how they joined. So my mom was hiking in the mountains in Korea, and she had to use the bathroom. And my mom was like Korean farm girl, like dirt poor. She's perfectly fine with going behind the bushes. But for some reason that day, she thought, I really want to use a real bathroom. So she and her friends, they hike down the mountain, they're looking for a bathroom, and her friends are wondering, why are you being so particular? And the first house she finds with a bathroom, guess who lives there? Church members. Yeah, that's how she met the church, because she had to use the bathroom. And my dad was meeting up with his brother in Chicago, and they were supposed to meet up downtown. And my dad is looking for his brother. Like he's checking to see, is this the right street corner? And then he's looking in the crowd, trying to see where's his brother. And then this woman walks up to him and asks, would you like to know about the purpose of life? And my dad's just like, no, I'm here to meet my brother, I'm busy. That's okay. We have this great weekend program. People have said that it's just totally changed their life. I'm sure you would appreciate it. Don't you want to know about the purpose of life? And she wouldn't take no for an answer. And then finally my dad says, okay, all right, fine, I'll go to this thing on the weekend. And then he turns around, and his brother is right there, like 6 feet away from him, and like facing the opposite direction. And he's just wondering, like, I was looking for you for 15 minutes. How did I miss you in all that time when we were this close to each other? How I joined the church is one day, my mother went to the hospital, and then boop, I popped out of her womb. I didn't have to do anything to join the church. It just happened to me. And that's a problem, because I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have ownership over my life of faith. One thing that's really valuable in evangelical Christianity is the conversion experience. So Divine Principle talks about how children of Christian parents still have to accept Jesus as their Savior. And that is a sign of the limitation of salvation by the cross. It is not something that changes people's lineage like the blessing. However, because no one is exempt from salvation by the cross, everyone at some point in evangelical Christianity has to accept Jesus into their life. At some point, everyone is supposed to have converted to Christianity. That really doesn't exist in unificationism. And if you're born in, like, you're born in. Don't get me wrong, I am super grateful I do not have to get hit with an indemnity bat when I go. Like, super grateful. Those are big bats. But that doesn't change that I didn't have to convert. And because I didn't have to convert, I didn't have ownership over my faith growing up. And ownership is of the utmost importance. Do you know what's another way to say ownership? Responsibility. Yeah. Having ownership is our portion of responsibility. Some divine principle for you. Yeah. If we are lacking in ownership over something in our lives, then we are not taking responsibility for what that is. I am not happy with my relationship with my parents. Now, I can stop and identify what's not working, and I can try to see, I can try somebody to see if it gets better, or I can deny responsibility and think whatever happens isn't my fault. And maybe it works out on its own. Maybe my parents will do something. But if they do, that's only because they decide to take responsibility and own their relationship. In something called The Way of Students, Father says, what does it mean that Adam and Eve fell? If they had thought to ask God before they fell, they would not have fallen. This act of asking is the 5% portion of responsibility. One is free to ask something. Thus, they should have asked God. The archangel is saying this and that. But what should we do? Had they done so, God would have responded to them. However, even without asking, they consummated a horizontal relationship. This is the problem. The problem occurred because they acted without asking. It is always that way. Do you have the confidence to fulfill your 5% portion of responsibility? So I came across that passage last night, and I realized that no, I often don't. Many times, I just want to lie back on the river of life and drift wherever the current will take me. It's comfortable, and it's safe. But within unificationism, we are called, we are challenged to take ownership, to take responsibility for ourselves, our lives, our families, our partners, our friends, and our relationship with God. There's nothing wrong with drifting in life. I mean, I've done it a lot, and I still do it. But if I'm not happy with who I am, with where I am, and I'm just drifting, I really can't complain because I am giving up my responsibility. So 3 years ago, I made a choice. I decided that after searching for different truths, I would choose unificationism as what I believe is my truth. So I took the faith that I had carried with me from my parents, and I made it my own. And it was one of the first things that I had ever really owned. And while I don't always own it, like sometimes I set it down and drift, I have found that the closest I feel to God is when I look at the distance in my relationship and I ask, how can I make that less? This is true. This is true for me with my fiance, with my parents, with my life goals, and with my ideal self. In the end, I get closer in my relationships and closer in my goals and ideals when I decide that I cannot depend on chance to move me forward. Now, I didn't share this because I am an expert in taking ownership of my life and accepting my portion of responsibility. But I am sharing this because I believe it is so important for people to take ownership of their life, their beliefs, their values, their ideals. Otherwise, what the world looks like is people arguing back and forth about issues on Facebook and then not actually doing anything about it. If you win a Facebook argument, guess what? You didn't change the world. And otherwise, the providence of restoration doesn't move forward. So later on, in The Way of Students, Father goes on to say that human history is impossible to be resolved without first understanding portion of responsibility.
That's true.
So wherever you are in your life, whatever you're doing, I invite you to take ownership of your life and to accept whatever your
your portion of responsibility, maybe. And in so doing, I also invite you to change the world while doing so. Would you join me in prayer? Dear God, life isn't easy, and while that's hard, where we are right now, that's also a good thing, because it means the things that we work for can have value. I pray that wherever people are in their lives, that they can take the time to understand how to take ownership over their lives, and that they can instead of letting life just happen, that they can also happen to life. Pray that, most importantly, that as we happen to life,